No, there was actually complaints lodged. I had to give back the beaver, but at the same time, I thought I was going to get away with it. Corey, picture this. I'm in the Janeway with scarlet fever. 1983. There was 2 other kids that are very sick and 1 other girl named Denise. She is also a victim of a horrific burn that happened back in the 70s.
Are you talking about a victim of a burn in a hospital when you were young?
This is the real deal. This young girl was at her birthday party. She was blowing out the candles and her hair caught on fire. And to put out the fire, her mother threw a blanket on her. Unfortunately, it was made of polyester. So here I was, trapped in this hospital room with this young girl. Everybody's asleep. And what is she talking to me about? But the first time she saw the movie Dawn of the Dead, I'm listening to her talking about this helicopter scene where it chops off the top of a guy's head and my face is like this.
Wow.
Scarred emotionally.
Is that story true, or are you telling a Cropsey legend? Because if it's a Cropsey legend, it's very captivating. If it's a true story, it's the most depressing way to open up a show. How does anybody ever go to camp, Philip?
What good comes from it?
So you never went to camp then?
No, man, I barely went to a sleepover. I was fucking terrified. I was a very anxious child.
And you presumably had started watching these movies pretty young?
I slept with my parents till I was at least 15.
As we continue to count down towards Halloween, I want you to walk me through what is this movie all about?
Well, one thing that we've learned about slasher films is that summer camps are bad news and practical jokes never work out the way they should. So basically, there's a bunch of kids at Camp Blackfoot and they want to wreak revenge on their alcoholic groundskeeper. They decide to scare the shit out of him and they take a rotting skull, worm-ridden, and they light a candle and they put it on the edge of his bed, and he wakes up and he sees it and it scares the living shit out of him. But unfortunately, he is living in this shack with a lot of gasoline.
From an occupational health and safety standpoint, it is not good.
OSHA is furious when they saw the raw footage of this. Anyways, he knocks it over, he catches himself on fire, and he ends up with 3rd-degree burns and ends up in a hospital for about 5 years. So, the joke was successful.
I went to camp when I was younger. We never played a joke that gruesome. This one's somewhat forgotten for some reason.
But at the same time, it is the film that actually launched Miramax, a small little company you may have heard of that actually launched Pulp Fiction.
Can you imagine? This is where the Weinsteins started.
Miramax is an incredible story, and it started off in Buffalo, New York. Bob and Harvey Weinstein, and they were very hungry to break into the movie industry, and what better way to do it than to capitalize on the slasher fever of '81. It's cheap, it doesn't cost anything whatsoever, and this is where they threw all their money.
Obviously, the Weinsteins did okay.
Harvey Weinstein's reputation doesn't really require much explanation. He knows what to get out of talent, and he knows how to make stars.
That is one way of describing it, yes. Can we talk about the kills in this movie, which start really early in?
When a lot of people talk about slasher films, they're like, well, don't forget about it, Ruth the Giallo. This film does not fuck around with Giallo. There is no red herrings, there is no mystery whodunit. Who's the killer? It's fucking Cropsey, man.
Yeah.
There's no getting inside his psychology or anything like that. He wants to kill.
Absolutely, because you're left wondering what's happening in My Bloody Valentine. You're left wondering what's happening in Funhouse. You're piecing things together. This one sets out what happens in the first minute of the movie, and then he murders a prostitute.
And people are like, well, why did he kill the prostitute?
Why is he killing the kids? They never did that to him.
Because he's insane.
Yeah, I mean, he's really bad. He's mad enough that he's committing wholesale murder.
And now he's also dealing with 3rd-degree burns, so he's probably not going to be the most pleasant individual. Imagine somebody like Johnny Ramone or Dave Mustaine with third-degree burns, it's not going to be someone you want to deal with.
That's funny.
I had a glue gun injury on my finger, and I thought I was going to have to call workers' comp.
So,
this guy's got third-degree burns all over his body. Quite frankly, the fact that that hospital released him without some sort of psychological evaluation is grounds for a massive lawsuit.
well, this movie breaks tons of conventions.
What I love about this movie is that it doesn't follow the actual tropes of slasher films.
The raft scene? It is not common for a group of teens to be massacred together. Generally, 5 together are safe.
And also during the day.
Daytime.
It's funny that you say that because this film is like weirdly paced. You feel like you're getting gypped until it gets to that moment, but it is wholesale slaughter.
Boom. The movie is on. Cropsy is here to play.
And not only is Cropsy here to play with Tom Savini, it's funny because Tom Savini said that he was not pleased with the effects in this, and I gotta tell you, I think this is fantastic.
Some amazing effects here.
This is his version of Freddy Krueger. Tom Savini, hilariously enough, refused to be a part of Friday the 13th Part 2. He did not like the direction that they were taking.
I love how he was like, it doesn't make sense. I'm not doing it.
He's like, I don't understand where this Jason kid is coming from. He's dead. Jesus, Tom, dude, you're like, come on, think outside the box. But he got involved with this film, and he decided to let loose.
It is jam-packed with some pretty good horror after that. Oh, are we going to talk about the general sheeriness of this movie? He kills everybody with one weapon, which is not characteristic.
A lot of people have accused Cropsy of not being a memorable slasher. I disagree vehemently. I think that he is probably one of the most terrifying. Now, I've also told you my background with burn victims.
Actually, Philip, no, I'm going to disagree a little bit. I don't think Cropsy is that memorable because it seems like a generic camp myth, which it is. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing that made this film so much more impactful, because this film actually has some folklore behind it. Cropsy is an urban legend. It's actually a story about a child serial killer that terrorized upstate New York and New Jersey at the time.
Yes, okay, I'll give it to you. Pretty memorable in some regards. Certainly, I think Tom Savini lends to how memorable he is because the makeup effects are out to lunch.
Because this film's violence, put it on the video nasty list. It's one of the earliest films that was on the list. And there's a reason for it. But I feel that the film was also somewhat linked in with another film that was also called The Burning.
Unnecessarily lumped in with the bad crowd.
Don't Go in the House was also known as The Burning. And this is a movie is not for the weak of heart. It does not have the same vibe coursing through this that The Burning has. Because you can really tell that the cast had a good time filming this movie. Don't Go in the House. Jesus Christ, man. Who made this movie?
The Burning comes off much lighter.
This one seems like they hired a bunch of like hookers off the street.
The Burning made a lot of money.
No, it didn't.
You know what? Once they started factoring in things like overseas audiences and then home video, they actually made a few bucks. Like,
okay, so you want to talk box office now?
Do you want to talk about box office?
Yeah, well, fuck it, that's where you're going.
It was a slow burn movie. It's a slow burn movie.
Oh, pardon the pun, and I'll continue that. I'll say it had a cool reception. This movie was made for about under $2 million. It grossed about under $800,000.
Yeah, but once they started making money overseas, it did start making money, is the point.
It was a big disappointment, though, Corey.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't making, like, Halloween 2 money.
Corey, it wasn't making Halloween 4 money. I will say this, though. A lot of people are fully aware of where they were when Elvis died or when Kennedy was assassinated. Where were you when the first time the name Corky Burger first came up on the screen for production manager?
I believe he was in charge of production.
This film also breaks grounds by having, like, the final lady being a very big-time puss bag.
Puss bag.
You'd expect Leah Ayres, who, I gotta tell you, man, in this film, she's got her mourning face on, but if you watch her in Bloodsport, Jesus Christ, man, she is a total fox and a half.
Fox and a half in this. In fact, there's Holly Hunter's in this, Philip. Are we gonna gloss over the fact that Holly Hunter's in this movie? We almost never talked about it.
Was she?
It's her first movie.
I know. You can tell it's a first movie for a lot of people.
I was really happy that some people survived. It actually made me happy. It was like, oh.
And it's funny because Cropsey doesn't get his vengeance. The people that he is wreaking havoc on have nothing to do with his actual fate. Except for, of course,
Todd.
Of course, for Todd. Which we find out later on is partially responsible for his third-degree burns.
It is so weird that he forgot that, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I created Cropsey. Oh my god, alright, my bad.
Corey, do you remember when we were driving around and we were high as a fucking kite? And we were at Cape Spear and we smoked a lot of weed. And then all of a sudden we were coming by Cody's Eatery, a 50s diner, and I said, hey, check that out. And you all of a sudden swerved and you went right into the diner and caused a 4-car pileup. What I loved about you was that you actually crawled out of the fucking car and you raised your hands up in the air and told the feet and said, my bad, that was me, that was my fault. Todd never did that.
Well, me and Todd had very different paths, I guess.
Well, I always thought that was admirable about you.
Don't be a Todd.
Stay inside, the time passes slowly. Say pop culture.
Do you remember your dog, Sasha?
I do, yes.
What was that kind of dog?
Sasha was a dog. Oh, yeah, a Samoyed.
Do you remember you killed it because you fed it Big Macs all the time?
It did get diabetes, yes.
It was a sad story.
Oh my god, do you remember how sad I was?
Sasha died, by the way. Very sad, much like a lot of the victims in this film. Hey, have a good Halloween.
When this madness is finally over, I can serve the next person in line. Can't stop working, cause that leads to thinking I'ma catch this deadly disease. I got one friend who always reminds me that it's life.